Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am Dion Bloodworth, and as you can see by the graphics, today I'm going to be taking a look back and doing a bit of a review of Steve Jackson Games GURPS 3rd Edition. Now, you might be asking yourself, when you look at my channel, you'll see that I review or go over a lot of old school editions of RPGs. And the reason for that is that I really had two time periods in my life when I played tabletop RPGs. I played from 1977 through about 1987 or 89. It really tapered off after 87. And there might have been a game here or there that I was still playing up until about 1989. And GURPS was one of them. So, and there's a reason for that, and I'll go into that as well. So over these last 2 years or so, this has been my second time frame of tabletop gaming, was from 2015 until this present day. So in the interim between 1987 or 1989 or so and 2015, I, had, between being in the military and then, moving around quite a bit and then getting married and moving once again, during that 20-year period, I had ended up, yard sales and just getting rid of stuff and or just not keeping track, as I moved 4 or 5 times. And, I didn't have anything or virtually nothing left of my older collections. So picking up GURPS was something that about 2 weeks ago, I decided, what, GURPS was one of the last systems that I played back between 1987, 1989, around there. And I'm a huge Conan the Barbarian fan. I'm a huge Robert E. Howard fan in general. So I was like, what, I want to get the GURPS that I played. And so over the last 2 weeks, I was able to find a combination between eBay and Amazon. I was able to replace my entire collection of GURPS 3rd edition. So that's the actual cover of the book that I purchased. I got this a couple of days ago in the mail. So I got this for about $14. So cheaper than what I could have gotten the newest version, which is out there, and I'm sure it's great. But for my purposes, I wanted to get this version here, the one I was familiar with. I also got obviously GURPS Conan, and the better part of the last 2 weeks getting the 4 GURPS modules or adventures for Conan. Now, these 4, what I had forgotten over the interim 30 plus years was that all of these are solo adventures. And so that's why I don't mind so much having sunk a little over $100 in replacing all of the 3rd edition copies, because that's what these were written for. And so I will still be able to play this and solo my character, whether it's Conan or somebody that I did create myself. But it is something that I'll be able to do on my own and run through these solo adventures and document that as I go through it. So what I'm going to do with this video is I'm going to go through this book and explain the positives, of this system. I really don't have any negatives about this system, other than it's an older one, and you can obviously get 3rd edition revised or 4th edition now. So When I switch over to the PDF, you're actually looking at the third edition revised in PDF. So I'm not going to flip through. This book here was pretty actually solid, other than a few little wear on the binding here on the outside cover, but the interior, it wasn't really opened that often. And I could tell that the pages are still very, very tight, which is something I'm always happy with when I'm purchasing, an older volume on eBay. I try to get the best price and obviously the most decent quality that I can get my hands on. And then I search around for the PDF for it so that I don't have to mess around too much with these. So without further ado, let's go take a look at the rule system itself. So again, once again, you're going to be looking at the PDF version of this, and it's the revised version. So just switching views here, and I have to do this. And there we go. So, as I said, this is the basic set, third edition revised. You can still get this on drive-through and others, other opportunities. You can get it on Amazon, I guess, and so on. So you can get copies of this. I was looking between the two, and there's not a huge difference between the two at all. So generally, table of contents, and I will zoom in on several pages just to go into detail. So here we have the introduction, and they go through, generic universal role-playing system is the name. Wasn't originally supposed to be the name, but they stuck with it. This was a placeholder name, and then they eventually decided, you know what, let's just keep that going there. There's a lot of influence from Tunnels and Trolls, especially the ideas that led to the focus on some solo or solitaire play. So that's where they get their solitaire play ideas from, is from Flying Buffalo's Tunnels and Trolls. And so, and that's something, even though I didn't play it back then, it's certainly something I'm going to look into, because I want to spend some time, both as a player and, for the channel, on solitaire play games as well. A few things that I really enjoyed about this. I mean, they go through a lot of advertisements and generic stuff like what is role playing. They give you the metric system conversion for us Americans, so that we know the difference between American standard and metric systems. What I really like about this is that here is your one-page quick start. Read this one page and you can play the game. So I am going to focus and spend some time with this page right from the start. So we go through, there are only 3 basic game mechanics in this game. The first is to make your success rolls. Everything is done with a d6. So you have 3 d6 that you're using to determine your success or your failure. Let's say you have a strength of 12. Then you want to roll a 12 or lower in order to be successful doing something that requires strength, or a skill. If you have a skill that is using, it has your skill level is like an 8, then you have to roll below an 8 in order to be successful. So the first thing is success rolls. Roll 3d6. Sometimes you have modifiers. You might have a strength at -2, which means you're going to roll 3d6 and you're going to have a -2 added to that roll. So I'll read this so make it clearer. Sometimes you will have a modifier to the roll. For instance, if you were trying to stop a very heavy door from closing, you might have to roll against strength at a -2. So you're not modifying the roll, you're modifying the stat. So if I have a 12 strength, well, now it's going to be as if I only have a 10 strength. So I have to roll below a 10. So it's not the roll you're modifying, it's the attribute that the roll uses. So that's kind of a little like reverse for many of us that are experienced with a lot of different MMOs, I'm sorry, a lot of different RPGs out there, is that we often think the modifiers go to the role and not to the, the attribute or the skill level that we're using. So that's a little bit different. Second is reaction rolls. So if the GM determines that a reaction roll is going to be something that randomly occurs instead of being preordained, then they make a roll and see how the NPCs react. And then there is a reaction table, as they say on pages 204 and 205. That's another thing that Steve Jackson Games really did well with this rule system, is they have references to the page number that you need to go to. So they're frequently telling you, well, if you want more information, go to this page, and then you could read that page. So it makes it a very functional rule system, in that you can keep things really simple. But if you want to add some additional details, you just go to the reference that it's talking about, and you can pick up that additional layer of detail. Third type of roll is your damage rolls. A damage roll is a roll made in a fight to see how much harm you did to a foe. Damage rolls use the dice plus adds. So if you had a strength bonus or something, and your weapon says that it uses 2d plus 2, then you would do 2d plus 2 plus any other strength or other modifiers to it, and you apply that to the damage. And once again, if you need more information, you can go to pages 214 to 217, and you'll get a little bit more detail. And they go here, uses only 6-sided dice, all success rolls, and most other rolls require 3 dice to be thrown. So this is a 1-page quick start guide. With this 1 page, you can play the game with a pre-generated character. And that's what leads us right into character creation. So if you're creating a character, and one thing I liked about this is, I mean, there's lots and lots of words here. Beginning character starting point. So everything about your characters, including their attributes, their advantages and disadvantages, and their skills, everything is bought for in a point cost system. So the typical character, the average character that you're going to play, is going to be what's considered to be hero material, or 100 points. So that's the basic build. Now you can have your characters start as young as teenagers, with like 15 or 25 points, or some other combination of, or you can go to the other extreme and say, well, I'm going to have my character start out as a full-fledged hero at 150 points, or superhuman at 300. So there's a number of different choices that you can make as either a GM or a player or someone who's playing solitaire. And you can decide, well, I'm going to run this adventure, but with a character slightly more, at a more difficulty level. So instead of having the 200-point Conan, I'm going to use 150-point my own character created for it. So that's another opportunity there, another choice that you can make. So here's the basic character sheet, and you can see here a strength. A strength of an 8 is a lower than normal strength. The average cost by is 0 points for a stat of 10. So what this person decided to do was he decided to take an 8 in strength, and that was a cost at minus 15. So instead of having 100 points, he now has 115 points. You can see here under dexterity, he has a 15 dexterity. That is well above the 10 base. And so it cost him 60. All right. An intelligence quotient of 12 is just slightly above average, so that cost him 20. His hit dice or hit points is a 12, so that cost him 20. So combined, you can see this would have been 100 points in order to buy. And then if he had a 10, he would have been fine. But he now spent only 85 to get these stats because he took the 15-point bonus, which he could spend elsewhere. Encumbrance and movement and such is just based on stats. Here are his advantages and disadvantages. And then there's quirks. And I'll go into those a little bit. So advantages, cost. Disadvantages, you recover some of your points that you can spend. And then these really minor ones here are his quirks. And you can see quirks are, you buy quirks off. So you get extra 5 points here to have these little quirks. So every character is going to end up with a +5 to spend because these really are just role-playing quirks. They don't really have a game mechanic impact. So it's always best to just, get your quirks in there. You put your starting points here, your point totals to 100. That way you know what framework basically your character was created under. And then here are the skills, and it shows the cost to purchase the various skill levels. And I'll go a little bit into that as well. I probably actually do a whole separate video on just character creation, just so that you can see. Now, we're going to go into the basic attributes at this point, and there's two things that I really like about this chart. The first thing is that they tell you what the levels are. So from a 1 to a 20, you can purchase these skill levels or attribute levels. So as I said, a character with a 10, I'll see if I can highlight that. A character with a 10 is average across the board. You could take all 10s in your stats. So in your attribute of strength, dexterity, intelligence, and health, you can have a 10 across the board. It costs you nothing, and then you could load up your characters with a lot of advantages and skills and such. Or what you can do is you can purchase higher level attributes for the various things. Now, what I really like about this is that for strength, let's say, they'll show you what the average 13-year-old has here. So if you are creating characters at different age levels, you can utilize this and say, well, you know what, I'm gonna do my 0 level character kind of character creation, and I'm going to start my character off at 13 years of age. And so here they would have an 8 as a strength, potentially an 8 as a dexterity roll, an 8 as an intelligence roll, and an 8 as a health, and then they'll have additional attributes or advantages or skills, although most likely not. And I'll go into that as well. What I like is the definitions that they give. So, how do you describe a character that has a 16 strength? Well, they're like your, professional weightlifter type of strength. Or if your character has a 16 dexterity, that is a very nimble character. Or it's a genius character for intelligence. Or it's a very healthy character for their health points. So for children, they go into the attributes modifiers for children and give you roughly what they are on average here. Now, having younger characters or knowing the age of your character is kind of important. That comes into the skills portion, and I will eventually get up to there. So based on your height and weight is based on your strength score. And so if you have that strength of 10, you will be roughly 5'9" and 150 pounds. And then you could roll for a modification just to make that a little bit different. There are other rules in here. So you have appearance, and appearance is based on, will have various effects on how you are received. And so there's an attractive appearance. The person doesn't enter beauty contests, but is definitely good looking, a +1 to the reactions. Or they could be, ugly and get a -2 or so. And they gain points for this. So once again, you're purchasing your character's appearance. And you either get reimbursed for the more ugly you are, or it costs more money, up to 25 points for very handsome or beautiful in appearance. Wealth and status, I'm going to skip over that. As far as reputation, going to do the same. Advantages. So advantages all cost. All right, so they're going to be deducted from your starting pool of purchase points. And some of them, I mean, you can see the better of them obviously cost more. So ambidexterity is more important than animal empathy. It's much more useful or versatile for you. Some skills have a bonus based on the number of pluses. So charisma per level means that for every 5 points you spend, you'll get a +1 for your rolls. So if you wanted to have a charisma bonus or level of 4, you would spend 20 points on that, and then you would have a +4 for your reaction rolls. Some of these things, like I saw one that was, let's see, combat reflexes. When I read this and I read all of the different things of this advantage, and it costs 15 points, if you're playing in a very combat heavy setting, you're going to want to pick up combat reflexes. I was like, oh my gosh, this is something that everybody is probably going to get. It's probably one of the most cookie cutter things that I've seen in this system, because the system does give you a lot of choices, but there are some things here that I saw that I was like, well, you're definitely going with combat reflexes. It gives you a +1 to your active defense. It gives you a +1 to your fast draw. It gives you a +2 for your fright checks. If you're the leader of a group, it gives you additional bonuses as well. So if you're, gives you a +1 for initiative rolls if you're by yourself, a +2 if you're the leader. You personally get a +6 on any IQ roll to wake up or to recover from surprise or a mental stun. So combat reflexes is something that I would think most people are going to want to give their character, especially if it's a character that's going to be involved in a lot of combat. And there's some others you can see like danger sense and everything. Any of these that are like 15 points or more are going to be something that that you're going to see are very powerful advantages to to get a hold of. They continue with some more advantages, and there's a lot here. Having allies is an advantage, and their patrons is an advantage, and it goes into what's the quality of them, and that will basically set the cost for those disadvantages. So there's a number of disadvantages, and they have social disadvantages. So like odious personality, and you have the various levels of that. You could have poverty, coming from a primitive culture, social stigmas or reputation, like having a low reputation. They have physical disadvantages, so you have, age, being over the age of 50, or you have other, possibilities. Let me just change that. And so you have those as well. Color blindness. Color blindness is something I would probably take just to, because to me it doesn't seem like a very bad disadvantage to have. And so so that's something. I'm sorry, I got interrupted. So that's something I would certainly do. Is take one of those, and there's some others as well. I would certainly take a few minor disadvantages in order to just pick up some extra points to spend. Mental disadvantages, so absent-mindedness, addictions, alcoholism, bad temper, berserk, being a bully, having a code of honor. Sometimes those are interesting to have because you can run the full gambit between -5 to -15. That means you're getting extra points to spend. Now, I wanted to finish up talking about, because you could see there's a lot here, more mental disadvantages. There's a whole lot having dependents, having enemies. Quirks, as I mentioned earlier when I was looking at the character sheet, they're just role-playing quirks. You gain up to 5 points recovered. So you could be sensitive about your height, afraid of drowning, loves high places, no drugs or alcohol, flamboyant show-off. And so those all add. You could take cannot read, but you see you're not getting an extra point for that because you've already taken 5. Your maximum is 5, although you're welcome to take more than 5 quirks. Skills. Here's another thing that I really thought was interesting. You purchase skills the same way, and there's different levels of skills and such, and there's learning new skills. And when you're first creating your character, you can't save up all your points to just buying skills. All right, your character, you can only have spent twice your age on skills. And this is meant to represent the fact that, if you're a 15-year-old, you can't have, 200 points of skills that you've purchased. The most you can have of your 200 points is 30 points based on your age, and then the other 170 points is going to be attributes. So that was an interesting thing that I liked about the system, because the system does seem to rely a lot on you having that flexibility of creating a character that is either younger or older, and each of those choices has an impact on character creation. So I really like that idea of how they did that. So here's the, the physical skills and how much it costs to buy physical skills. And there's a bit of a drop off, and I have to reread this and go back through it again. But there is a point of diminishing return to go very much higher. So you might be better off spending 8 points to get another skill at a +2 rather than spending 8 points to get one skill up to a +3. So it does compound. You're better off spending those same points to move two +1s to a +2 than one +2 to a +3. So that kind of slows down your really rapid progression in increasing a skill. Let's say you're using your sword skill. You may not go with your sword skill going from a +1 to a +3 before you would have trained a couple other skills from a +1 to a +2. And then you might bank a bunch of your points to move your character to a +3. Continuing on, there's the huge list of skills and such. And like I said, I will spend more time with going through each of these other sections when I dig into more specifically the Conan source book. So here you have basic combat, and like I mentioned, you can get the basic combat, that all that you need from just that quick start single page, or you can go into more detail with things like maneuvers, using flails. You see, flail has some special properties involved with using flails. There are reloading times for various weapons that you're doing. So there are many different layers of combat that is more than just I swing, I hit, or I swing, I miss. How much damage should I do? You have tactics such as an all-out attack, a feint, waiting, an all-out defense, concentrating, taking a longer action, what free actions do you have during the combat sequence, and so on. So it is a very detailed system of combat. The more that you want to make it detailed, the more details you can then add. Or if you want to keep it very simple, you can certainly keep it very simple. Same thing with defense. You have active defense, dodging and blocking, parrying. Special parrying rules. You have passive defenses. So these are, obviously automatic defenses that you may have, including wearing armor or something along those lines. Damage and injury rolls, ranged weapons, and the special rules for ranged weapons, unarmed combat, and all of the special rules for that as well. Then you go into advanced combat system as far as movement, facing, and this is more so for, I'm guessing, if you really want to go into the large scale combat scenarios that you might find yourself in. That's where I think that comes in more to play. Or you just want to add that additional layer to to small group combat as well. I just noticed knockbacks. I'm sure that you have knockbacks and slam attacks, and there's probably knockdowns and so on. There are movement costs that they go into. You could see this is a fully fleshed out system. Hit location and critical hits, critical misses, close combat. And I'm just flashing through. You can see there is still a vast number of pages to scroll on through in this here. But I am going to switch back to the front end here. So you can see total, and this is not the revised version. This is the original version of 3.0. It's roughly 214 pages, you know, of rule book. This includes also a solo adventure and then another adventure. So you have a solitaire adventure that you can run and learn the system out very well, and then you can shift over and run the adventure that is in the book with a group of players if you wish. And it gives you sample characters at the very end. It gives you a number of sample characters. Let me find them. Right here. Here's the sample adventure. Here's the solo adventure. Just to show you the layout of a solo adventure, you can see it has the corresponding numbers. So if you're reading 110 and it says, well, if this occurred, go to 111, and if that occurred, go to number 98, and then you just switch around. So it is like the find your own path kind of adventures, just written, you know, for an RPG rather than a storybook. I did come across those starting characters. So here's a number of character sheets that you have in here, and it goes through and it gives you some samples that you can then utilize for yourself, or you can just make up your own. Obviously, there are character sheets for this out all over the internet. They're generally free, or you can find an image file of one and just print that out. So those do exist. Or if you're getting the PDF version of... now, I could not find a PDF version of Basic Set 3rd edition, so it's not out there. There's plenty of places that you can get the revised edition. Probably even from Steve Jackson Games, you know, own website, you can get the revised edition of 3.0, or you can get 4.0 as well. Like I said, the reason why I went with this older version is because all of this was written for that, and so that's why I wanted to, you know, kind of complete the system. This is one of the few times that I've found everything in a span of a week or 2 weeks actually, and you know, and I was able to purchase everything in one shot. So now it'll go on my bookshelf, and I am absolutely going to run through some of those solo adventures, and I will, for the channel, show off those as well. So once again, thanks for joining. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. And if there's anything in particular that you'd like for me to show, whether it be about this game system or, you know, how you want me to present the Conan run-throughs, because I will do playthroughs with those as well. So if you want to watch that, you know, running through, and there's certain ideas that you have about it, then please leave a comment in the comment section. As always, if there's something that you think could have been done better, leave that information there as well. You know, I always try to be as responsive as I can with both suggestions, both positive or negative. So once again, enjoy, stay safe out there, and I look forward to seeing you on the gaming screen sometime soon. You'll have a great afternoon.